Ruin My Childhood.
Welcome to Ruin My Childhood, the podcast where we decide if some things are better left in the past. I'm Kat.
I'm Mike.
And today, we are discussing Troop Beverly Hills.
Yep.
Have you ever seen this?
I have seen it. I'm pretty sure you and I watched it together at some point in our 10-year relationship, but it's been a while.
I can't imagine that you wouldn't have seen it.
No, I've definitely seen it. My dad really liked this movie. I know we watched it a bunch when it was on TV. We didn't own it, but I've seen it several times.
It's a great movie.
It is a great movie. I definitely remember liking this movie quite a bit, but I can't really tell you any major plot points. I guess I could tell you the overall plot, but I couldn't tell you any of like the specific details. I don't really remember it that much.
It's got so many great moments. It has Shelley Long.
Yep.
And Craig T. Nelson.
Yep. I knew that.
Shelley Long, I absolutely adore because she's one of those women that cinema will actually allow her to be funny and do slapstick. And she's beautiful. And usually Hollywood doesn't like that. They don't want beautiful women to be goofy and awkward and do their own stunts.
Nope. I can't think of too many other ones. Goldie Hawn. Like, in that era, it was really her and Goldie Hawn.
Yeah. So, this was one of my favorites growing up. My whole family loved this movie. I think, part of the appeal was that my sisters and I were all Girl Scouts. So, they're not Girl Scouts, they're wilderness girls. But,
same thing.
I mean, they're supposed to basically be
They
Girl Scouts. They
probably
sell
just
cookies.
couldn't get the rights.
Of course not. Of course not. So, I don't know if any actual production has really gotten the rights to portray Girl Scouts. I've never seen it happen.
Yeah, they're always something else, like Wilderness Girl. I think you just said Wilderness Girls, but they're always like Friendship Girls or Nature Girls or
Nature
Patty Scouts or... Yeah, they're always some variation, but never Girl Scouts.
Something with a uniform.
Same thing with the Boy Scouts in movies. Like Jonathan Taylor Thomas, there's a movie he's in that has Chevy Chase in it. And it's like Wilderness Scouts or Indian Scouts or something like that.
Yeah, they're very careful about their image.
Yep.
Very
careful. I mean, it's a very long...
They've gone through some growing pains recently.
Girls could be in the Boy Scouts now.
It's awesome. Awesome. Girl Scouts is finally getting it together in that department. But yeah, it's been tricky, them coming to terms with the fact that the organizations hadn't really adapted to different people.
Hey, you can do Girl Scout cookies on Venmo now, or at least you can Venmo the parents.
What?
I don't know, at work we had people, and I definitely bought a couple boxes and Venmo'd the parents.
That's awesome.
Gotta get them tag-alongs.
Yeah, my dad used to take that, because they give you a sheet, basically, that you fill out everyone's address, optional phone number, and then they check how many boxes of each that they want. And my dad would take it to the office, but then, like, one time he was like, yeah, I can't really take this in, because he got, like, promoted too many times, and then it was just, like, inappropriate.
Right, because they feel obligated to buy them for the boss's kids.
Yeah, but then, like, all the coworkers were like, no Girl Scout cookies this year?
Aww.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love this movie.
What's your favorite part? Do you remember anything specific?
Oh, there's so many good things. I love when they're actually camping and there's a rainstorm and it's immediately pouring, which, you know, it's kind of funny that they would be camping and not aware that there was a potential for rain, this being Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, right.
Usually when there's rain coming, we're
we
like,
know.
Oh, batten down the hatches.
Right.
It's gonna be ugly.
The only thing I remember specifically about it is there's a mean wilderness girl mother, like a rival troop leader or something like that, who's trying to be a saboteur.
This saboteur.
Yeah. But other than that, I honestly... And isn't there like a spy in the midst that like takes pictures of them or something like that?
Plants a mole.
Oh, mole.
A mole.
Oh, no.
We've got a couple comments. Do you have any?
I do. I only got one, which surprised me because I know you love this movie and I've had fond memories, but I didn't get a lot. But I did have Monica Miner 87 say, "Heck yes, that was my favorite movie when I was little."
Oh. The Incredible Holes? I don't know if it's Holes or Holsey. This is the best movie ever. And you have to mention, your mom was the troop leader.
Was your mom the troop leader?
Yes. This is Emily. She was actually in my Girl Scout troop. 1338, what up? My mom was the troop leader from the very beginning of that troop. I think we were like founding members. Of course, Girl Scout troops tend to just, fizzle out and die. I know that there are some that are kind of like a legacy situation, and they end up going strong, but for the most part, usually it's like a group of girls who are Daisy age, which is the first tier when you join, when you're little, like first grade. Yeah, so my mom was one of the first troop leaders, and I was itty bitty, and I think I was like 5 years old, 5 or 6. I don't know how young you can join Girl Scouts. Very beginning. It was so much fun, though. But, you get older, and then nobody cares. People stop showing up.
I read that comment and thought they were just saying the troop leader was your mom because Shelley Long had red hair in the movie. I didn't know the commenter knew you personally.
Oh, yeah. Katie the coach said she was obsessed with Evian water.
Is Evian even good water?
It tastes good.
Okay, I thought it was just like...
It's not worth the price tag, that's for sure. I think it's more of a status thing.
Oh, okay. I thought Evian wasn't as big now as it used to be. I'm sure it was bigger.
Oh gosh, it was a big deal. It was like Fiji water.
Oh, Fiji water's
now,
good.
Fiji water's the thing.
Mm.
You know what's interesting? Because I know a lot of people who really love this movie, but no one wanted to comment on it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like, I asked a lot of people if they've seen this movie before, and I asked probably a good 15 people, and they said no.
I think it's kind of like one of those things where you love the entire film, but it's hard to pinpoint any one moment. Like, tell me your favorite moment from Grease. Like, okay, I don't personally ever seek out Grease.
But when it's on, you watch it.
But when it's on, I will always watch it, and I will love it, and I adore that movie.
I can tell you my favorite part.
What?
We made out under the docks.
Oh my god.
Pelvic thrust.
Tell me about it, stud. Yeah, this is a great film. I'm excited to watch it.
Let's go watch it then.
Yeah.
Meet a scout leader with a different idea of wild life.
Who are you?
Phyllis Neffler, Troop Beverly Hills.
Who'd never let her girls think she's over the hill.
Lie down and open your mouth.
Last time I did this, I got more than a patch for it.
And who's not afraid to show them how to make a big splash.
Isn't this a fabulous girl?
Shelley Long's a trooper in Troop Beverly Hills.
We are back. We have watched the film. We have acquired notes. Notes and joy.
Per the usual.
I love this movie. I'm never disappointed when I watch it.
It was good. I didn't realize it had an animated opening.
Yes.
Just like Grease.
So many films in this era had animated openings. I kind of feel like everything through like 70s, early 80s ended up having an animated intro. It's just fun.
Do you know who did the animation for this intro?
Same person who did Ren and Stimpy.
That's right, Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
John Kricfalusi. I butchered that name, and I'm not going to look up how to actually pronounce it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was so much fun. Right off the bat. It's just, like, it jumps right into it. The first scene, you meet the Red Feathers, which are sort of the rival troop
the elite
from Culver City.
They're the SEAL Team 6 of Girl Scouts.
So aggressive, and it's absolutely hilarious.
So they have this thing where, yeah, they like close off a meeting with those girls, and then the mom, who I don't think they say her name for quite a while in the movie, but we find out her name is Velda, and she's having kind of this meeting to find a troop leader for Beverly Hills, and she's got like the grand matron is there, and they're going over the resumes, and they have this little montage where they say like a life skill, and then they show Shelley Long's character. She's got a headshot, like right? Straight up acting headshot attached to her resume. So they say like the first thing, age not applicable, marriage status shaky, and then they go community affairs, and then you see her gossiping about some doctor in the community having an affair. Thrifty, and then you see her haggling a $5,600 dress to $5,000. Loves animals, kisses a golden frog like brooch or something, and then she gets accepted based on that resume. Well, she was kind of their only option, right? So
right in the beginning, you see that Velda has this vendetta against Troop Beverly Hills because they have a long history of chewing up and spitting out troop leaders, of being spoiled little princesses, and not embodying the spirit of a wilderness girl, in Velda's opinion.
Never received a badge, never sold a cookie. She's trying to get them disbanded.
She is. It like right off the bat, she's got some bad blood. You never really hear about what exactly her issue is, other than the essence of wilderness girls being tainted by them.
Right.
There's got to be something else there.
Well, I think it's just some people get so wrapped up in what their children are doing that it becomes more important to them than it actually does, than it is for their children. So, for example, I didn't do Boy Scouts or any of that. I really wanted to, but wasn't able to. But I did take karate for a couple years, and I was kind of interested in it, but my brother was really interested in it, so I was forced to do it. And then my dad decided to do it, and then long after I was no longer interested in it, eventually my brother started to kind of lose interest in it, but we were forced to keep doing it because my dad really wanted to do it. And it no longer became about us, it became about my dad wanting to continue doing karate.
Aww.
And that happens all the time. You see it with dads who coach baseball, and like they go further into it than their kids do, who they're supposed to be doing to spend time with their kids, and then they get all into the winning and being the best. So
they're living vicariously through their child.
Yeah, and by the end of this movie, and we haven't even summarized it yet, but we will, Velda loses, and she ends up losing everything and going to go get a 9-to-5 job kind of thing at Kmart. So like this was her entire life. Like this was her career.
It's interesting that some people really do get that into scouting, or they get into whatever organization their kids are in. There were definitely a few Veldas in our community theater in Gilroy growing up. Not gonna name names. Actually, I think some of them are dead, so I guess I can't.
Whoa.
I guess that's naming names.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody who listens to this podcast knows you personally, so no, you haven't said anything, and we can just stop there.
Yeah, there are some intense women, and they probably don't have anything else going on in their lives, and so they latch on to that one thing, and
that makes them feel important.
Yeah, like a dog with a bone. Craig T. Nelson is in this.
He's the dad.
He is Phyllis Neffler's husband, Freddie.
The Muffler Man.
Freddie the Muffler Man.
Should I summarize this real quick, like?
Yeah.
This one's a really easy one to summarize. Troop Beverly Hills doesn't have a troop leader, so Phyllis, played by Shelley Long, decides to be the new troop leader. At the same time, she's going through a divorce and trying to find her place as a woman in the world, and also try to find a way to be less materialistic but still keep who she is, while kind of starting to embrace the ideals of the wilderness girls. And she also has to deal with Velda, the rival troop leader, kind of just trying to put her down every step of the way. And she ultimately has to come through and show the girls that she can be, a beautiful woman and care about yourself and, have some materialism, but still have survival skills and make it through and be a strong, independent woman as well.
Yeah. Way to go. Independent women.
All the women, independent.
So at close to the beginning of the movie, you start to get to know the girls who are in the troop, and you get to know their parents.
Oh, I loved this scene. This whole intro to all the girls.
It's not quite a montage.
It's a little too long to be a montage.
But the pacing of the whole film is just so good.
Yeah, it's not a long movie. I think it's a lot. There's a lot that happens.
There's so much. It goes right from the beginning, like right out the gate. There's stuff happening. There are so many details in this film that you don't realize until you watch it for like the second or third or fourth, sometimes even like the fifth time. I'm still finding new things about this film that I noticed that are absolutely hilarious. And the more I watch other films, the more I find these references in pop culture that I didn't know before. There's one line that the maid says towards the end of the movie, because they're struggling to find their place in the Wilderness Girls, and eventually they realize, okay, so we have to earn patches because we're pretty much the only troop who's never earned a patch. And And so the maids...
Well, they make their own badges or patches, and then they all get taken away because they're not legit.
Yeah, they get taken away from them, and the maid says, patches? We don't need no stinking patches.
And I recognize that line from It. Now, because I spent hours and hours in my car listening to the audio version of It, one of the characters said that quite a bit, like, badges? We don't need no stinking badges. And I didn't know what it was from.
So, on one hand, it's funny, because that might be one of the few, and it's terrible because it's actually a misquote of a famous film, but it's a play on a quote from a famous film. And on one hand, it's funny because it's one of the only times it's a little bit different and it's actually in a funny context, whereas usually it's just kind of a dumb parody on the original film. But at the same time, like, the line is always done by a Mexican so that they can do the accent.
Yeah. So it's from a movie called The Treasure of Sierra Madre.
Mm-hmm.
And
in the 40s.
From 1948, which
movie
explains
classic.
Why it was in It. And then it was in Blazing Saddles. We watched a YouTube clip, and there was like a good 30 pieces of pop culture that referenced it in some way or another. Some of them would straight up say badges, some would say patches.
Here's the thing, though. It's like that scene, okay, the movie is a product of its time.
Right.
So, of course, any depiction of Mexicans is going to be slightly racist, because unfortunately that's what cinema does to any Latinos. Even now, it's struggling to get away from that. So they kind of play up this caricature of the Mexican. But on the other hand, it's a really good scene. It's even that one line that the actor gets, like he is finding his objective. That doesn't work. It's like there's so much complex work that actually goes into that one line, and it completely just gets thrown away in pop culture. But it's actually a really great scene.
Well, it's actually like number 34 at one point on 100 greatest lines in cinema. So
yeah,
it's
fantastic.
a big deal, but yet, I mean, that explains why it got mimicked so often.
And yet, it is a racist caricature, and people continue to play up the racist aspect of this caricature.
Yeah.
And the brilliant performance behind it is completely lost.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess back to Troop Beverly Hills.
Way to go, pop culture.
So, one of the things that I really liked, and we kind of started talking about it before we went on to this pop culture line, was the parents of the kids. Like, we find out one of them is a dictator of some Pacific island that we don't know. One is the kid of a surgeon, another one is a kid of a washed-up actor, another one is a child star herself, one is a child of some famous boxer, and another one is the child of a famous author, like romantic...
It's erotica.
Right.
Romance novels.
Exactly. So, once again, we notice all these spoiled kids. Some of them are getting paid to go to be a Girl Scout. Some of them haggle over being a Girl Scout. Some of them are doing it to... One of the kids is a director's daughter, and she's kind of doing it to research a role or something like that for the director. I don't really know what that was, but I thought it was really funny seeing all that, and throughout the movie you always hear about the dictator, right. And then he shows up later on in the movie and he's like, what do I call you, the dictator? And then he's like, oh, just call me, and he says his like first name, and it was really funny. Like, I did not remember that at all.
Oh, so dictator. Also at another point, they show up and she, instead of addressing them by anything, she just calls them dictator, Mrs. Dictator.
Right. And it's not until like the dance scene at the end, towards the end of the movie, because they sold more boxes of cookies than anybody else. They have like, they throw a ball to celebrate, and then we learn his name, and he's just has some like average name,
right?
That it's just weird and out of place.
I did really like that they kind of address the fact that so many kids do take on their parents' burdens.
Right.
Because you don't see that a lot in films. Like, usually parents are in their own world, kids are in their own world. In this, you see, like, just how twisted this dynamic is, and that there's so much baggage that the adults are putting on the kids, and just how deeply affected it is, especially when you have kids who come from really, really wealthy families, stuff gets jumbled a lot.
Well, and then you also kind of, on your same point, you have the guy who's a washed up actor.
Right.
His daughter, you know, they don't have money. They don't have the $10 for the uniform, and then they need money for the patches. And, you know, she kind of threatens to quit when she needs even more money for these patches, because she's got to maintain this image because her dad is an actor and he can't admit that he's washed up. Like,
yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, when he drops her off for the first meeting, he's like, "Oh, I've got a meeting." She's like, "You're going to the unemployment office, aren't you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then by the end of the movie, because one of the kids' fathers is a director, he ends up getting cast as, you know, she pulls strings and gets him a role in a movie. And
the Daughters Network for the
exactly.
dads.
So, you know, that was something that was great about this movie, is you did have all these spoiled brat kids, and they ultimately ended up taking care of each other, and they all learned from each other different skills, and they watched out for each other. They ended up paying their way, helping pay for that girl so she can get her patches and have her uniform and everything like that, which was nice, because it was never like, they make a joke about interest paying her back and whatnot, but
right.
you know, clearly the group really cared for each other by the end of the movie.
Yeah. Speaking of really, really rich, spoiled kids, Tori Spelling makes another appearance in this film.
Yeah, we didn't. She's a red feather.
She's a red feather.
Yeah, that was funny. 2 Beverly Hills things in a row, both with Tori Spelling. I didn't realize that when we picked this movie.
She shows up in that scene where there's this one background girl in this scene who looks directly into the camera. And I always see it every time we watch this, and I'm like, oh, I hope that's never been me. You know, sometimes they're like moving the camera in a scene, and you're trying to not look into it, and you've just been you glance away in this action, and you repeat the action the same every single time, and one time you go and do that action, and when you look, bam, there's the lens. Like,
right.
There's nothing you can do about it sometimes.
Right. So one of the major plot points for this movie is they're going through a divorce. Shelley Long, Phyllis, is going through a divorce with Fred. And yeah, when we were introduced to Fred, he kind of like barges into the house, and he's supposed to be staying in the guest house, and he wants to get his dumbbells. And you see this house is huge. They have a full like gym upstairs with a balance beam and everything. And then you find out that he's divorcing her because she spends too much of his money, and she's not the woman he fell in love with.
That's so rude, though. Honestly, no, because like that's such a dynamic that so many people fall into when one person is the breadwinner. Because yeah, of course she does spend a lot of his money, but they live in Beverly Hills, and they have this social circle where that's the expectation. You know, she makes this home. She created the home. She created their image that they enjoy. Therefore, she kind of created their life for them. Like, sure, he paid the bills. He's provided the money. He continues to provide the money. But socially, he really wouldn't be where he is,
right,
if it weren't for her. And honestly, like, your social status does impact your business.
It does. And the only thing that I can kind of give him a little bit of leeway on is he specifically mentions, like, he shows a little bit of vulnerability when he says, like, I know I'm not the same level as a lot of the other husbands there. Like, I had to work and create my own business and work my way up.
He's got a chip on his shoulder.
He's got his chip on his shoulder. He has a chip on his shoulder. He is kind of like a blue-collar man initially, and he works his way up to being a white-collar businessman. So for him, it is a little strange. He doesn't get that that's what it means.
Well, then he shouldn't have married a trophy wife.
No, I agree. Ultimately, you are right. As sad as it is, she doesn't... Her value is on what the house looks like, what she's wearing.
Right. She pours her everything into their kid and their lifestyle.
Right.
So I understand it. He's kind of a jerk about it.
Right. He absolutely is, because that's obviously what he wanted. And then this, some of the movie kind of pivots around him finding a new girlfriend and then wanting to expedite the divorce so he can marry her. So that's a pretty big plot point in this, but he quickly kind of like gets over her and wants to get back with Shelley Long.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about this, though, is they do have these kind of dramatic moments in their fights. So in this one scene, she ends up throwing all of his ties out the window.
But then she immediately goes, he's a shit, but he's a cute shit.
Right.
Like, there's obviously some passion there. Like, there's a point where she's trying to open, like, a mayo jar, and she can't. She, like, storms over to the guest house, just bangs on the window. He opens it up, just cracks it open, and they kind of, like, look at each other. Like, you can tell there's
seem
still
like
something
one of those
there.
couples that use fighting as foreplay.
Right.
Yeah, that's weird.
They definitely need some therapy.
They definitely need therapy. But, it's the 80s.
Right.
Who in the 80s was actually getting the therapy they needed?
Right.
That was the time of OJ and
Well, a little early.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but that's when that sort of society was brewing.
Right.
Yeah, so they've got this really obviously passionate dynamic, but she also at the same time talks about how she's going through a terrible divorce and a messy and complicated divorce. And, I've seen a lot of messy, complicated divorces in real life, and theirs isn't that bad comparatively. No. Like, he's moved into the guest house in the beginning, then he gets his condo, but it's like, it's hard for life to be that rough when you have that much money.
Right. Well, and they're also both showing up to support the daughter at events, and they're able to be civil.
Right.
Like, it's not that bad.
Yeah, she gets shamed for smoking at one point, and she's like, well, Smokey the Bear isn't going through a terribly messy divorce. Right. Smokey the Bear does get referenced a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense because they go camping and kind of talk about...
Where is Smokey the Bear? Like, Smokey the Bear needs some better PR these days. Like, he's kind of coming back a little bit, but, like, I miss the buff Smokey the Bear. Like, he came out from behind a tree and he's like, only you can prevent forest fires. And you're like, oh, take me, Smokey.
What? Okay, furry.
Oh, God, no, definitely not. I want nothing to do with furries. When I see them at Renfair, I'm like, just tell me when they're gone.
Were you one of the people who thought Beast was super hot in the new?
Okay, so
Beast?
The Beast was like, I thought you said Beast, and I was like thinking about the blue guy. I'm like, Beast is my favorite. Like, I got so excited just now. But it's not a furry thing. No, he's just a great guy. No, Beast from Beauty and the Beast, no. I want nothing to do with the Beast. I want nothing to do with the prince. Belle is boring.
What about the new Beauty and the Beast, the live action one? A lot of people think he's hot
not
as Beast, not as the human.
As Beast.
As Beast.
No.
Okay.
No, that's weird.
All right.
No.
So Smokey does it for you, Beast does not.
Smokey's got that presence. Smokey's a stud, like Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean and Smokey, like, they can carry me around all day.
All right.
Like, you
let's
you
talk
feel
about the
safe
camping
with them.
scene.
You want them to wrap their arms around you.
The camping scene.
I want nothing to do with furries. Not even partial furries. It's even worse when it's just like a fox head and a human body. Ugh.
What about a centaur? That's a mythical creature.
A satyr.
Oh, man.
We need to move on.
Camping scene. So they go camping and it starts raining.
Speaking of bears.
And they get rained out, so they decide to go to the Beverly Hill Hotel. Like the really famous hotel. And
isn't that owned by like the Sultan of Brunei or something?
I don't know who owns the Beverly Hill Hotel.
Yeah, but we have to boycott it now. In case we were ever gonna stay there.
I don't but she ends up calling Velda and like, I can't believe you recommended that campsite. It is the worst.
There were bugs
and it rained.
There was no electricity.
Dirty. Right. And so Velda shows up the next day and all the girls are playing like some sort of card game with the bellhop.
Right.
And Velda shows up and gets him out of there, and she says something along the lines
Den of iniquity.
Yeah, she says something along the lines that the Red Feathers were at the same campsite, and they spent a whole week there, and they ate nothing but berries and squirrel meat, and didn't poop the entire time where they were there. And they're like, maybe it was the squirrel meat.
I feel like squirrel meat is kind of an inefficient way to get your protein.
Hey, it's better than nothing. I think they mentioned nuts. They found nuts and berries.
How would you find nuts and berries? It's California. It's a desert.
I don't know.
I do love that scene, though. At one point, so basically they get there, And they're really bored because they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing on a camping trip because none of them have ever been camping.
Right.
Of course. They've got everything that has been set up for them. They're basically glamping.
Right.
It's adorable.
They had giant tents. They had like a buffet set up.
So finally Phyllis decides, well, she'll make fondue for them. So she shows them how to make fondue. And that's when this rainstorm hits. And we get this brilliant slapstick performance from Shelley Long where she's trying to save the fondue and bring it back into the tent. And it's just brilliant.
She's just crawling her way through the mud. And
it's hilarious. I can't even imagine what an intense shoot day that must have been to generate that much fake rain.
Right.
In, where was that? Probably like Griffith Park or something.
Probably. So they end up doing... Velda ends up hiring Annie to be the assistant troop leader, and they're trying to catch them doing things incorrectly. So they make up their own patches. So they have like a jewelry appraisal patch, and they do like CPR patch, and Phyllis ends up making out with the CPR instructor. They have like a dance.
So inappropriate.
Yeah, they have like dance, ones, and they just make their own patches.
I think that scene actually is the reason that so many people for all of time since then, whenever you say that you're learning how to do CPR, they go, oh,
right.
Mouth to mouth.
Right.
Or maybe that was The Sandlot.
Oh, well, I mean, this came out before The Sandlot, but
Yeah.
I think The Sandlot's probably the bigger movie for our age group.
Probably.
So at this point, Velda takes it to like I almost said the Grand Wizard. I don't.
Dear Lord.
The mother matron of the main scout leader, like the biggest one.
I did not see that coming. I stole that joke from Twitter.
Yeah, nice.
Different context.
Way to go, Twitter. And so she's thinking that she's gonna get Phyllis fired, and the main troop leader was like, well, I see her, adapting, and I see her taking the kids under their wing, and I see them teaching survival skills that they need in their neighborhood and kind of thing. And they also sold a ton of cookies, so clearly she's doing something right. And so basically she's accepted as, maybe she's not the most normal troop leader.
Yeah, but she's what they need.
Still bringing these girls life skills.
Right.
And that really set off Velda.
And here's the great thing about this, is it's not just her teaching them everything. Like, the girls actually have these skills that they can teach each other, like you mentioned earlier, from their crazy parents.
Right.
So, like the dictator's daughter, they make up the, what is it?
Squashing a rebellion or something like that.
They made the How to Launder Money and Crush a Revolution patch, which is very relevant in Beverly Hills, the laundering money part anyway. And at one point, there's some kind of, I don't remember exactly what they call it, but she takes them to a jeweler, and they're learning the ins and outs of diamond appraisal.
Does it sing?
Oh, yes, it does. Kumbaya. I love the Kumbaya moment. So at the end of their washed out camping trip, they end up singing Kumbaya, and it comes back into this movie. And so for years, if we had like a first world problem in my house, somebody inevitably would just start singing Kumbaya, my lord. She also kind of revolutionizes the Wilderness Girl uniform. In the very beginning of the film, she realizes that she has to wear a uniform as well as a troop leader, and she purchases them and realizes that they're absolutely heinous.
Yeah.
So she takes them to her, I guess, tailor. It's not a seamstress.
Right. They're just, I don't know, some designer. Probably a designer friend.
Basically her designer. And he completely redoes the uniform. So then she shows up at
the troop leader meeting.
At the troop leader meeting where they're all planning their annual jamboree wearing a cape. She struts in late, and she just sort of takes over everything from that point, and you see what a boss she is, and that she's absolutely amazing, and knows what she's doing with fashion.
Another moment that I liked with her is they had the ceremony for the patches on like a yacht, and the dad and his girlfriend show up, and the girlfriend kind of starts getting jealous. Like, the only reason she's doing this Girl Scout thing and having all these parties because there's a ball as well as this yacht party. So they have several parties for the Girl Scout kind of events. And so the girlfriend gets jealous and then ends up just pouting and ends up falling overboard. And she's like, throw me a life lifesaver. And she goes, oh, do you want wintergreen or fruit flavor or whatever?
Okay, but, the guy could have just jumped in a little bit sooner for his chick.
Right, he does jump in, but he kind of, like, waits and lets her make this joke before jumping in.
It's terrible.
And that's, I think, all the major events. Do you have anything else before we get to the finale?
Oh, the finale is good.
Finale is good. So they go to this like jamboree thing, which is just surviving and being on a trail, and it's also a race. That's pretty much it, right? They're just camping and surviving.
Yeah. It culminates in kind of like a scavenger hunt type thing. Basically, they have to go through the wilderness through a predetermined course and find these arrows and follow the arrows to the end of the course. Here's the thing, though. Like, Velda set up the course.
Right.
So it's definitely a conflict of interest from the beginning, even when she wasn't necessarily participating with her troop, that she plotted out the entire course.
Right. So she ends up cheating. She has her daughter go and change, like, arrows, like the direction for the path, on the first day. And the only reason that Troop Beverly Hills makes it through the first day is they find a water moccasin, which is super poisonous, and they end up just freaking out and running, and they just run in a straight line, and they end up like breaking through a path, and they finish in first place for the first day. Not because they did anything right. They just got afraid of a snake and
There's
ran.
this great moment at the beginning of the first day when Velda is pretty much like telling everyone to go start your course, and she fires a gun into the air and a bird falls on her shoulder.
That reminded me of when a squirrel fell on me at UC Davis.
Oh god. At least it wasn't dead.
No, it wasn't dead. It happened a couple of times, actually.
Gross. UC Davis is nasty.
Yeah.
Kind of boring.
They had Woodstocks, though, and that was great.
Great.
So day 2, Velda forces the troop leader to pretend to be sick so she can assume command of the Red Feathers.
The assistant troop leader of the Red Feathers.
I don't think she's actually the troop leader for the Red Feathers because
I think she is.
I think she's administration at that point.
I think
Because
she's
not
doing
every
both.
other group had an assistant troop leader. Because I think Annie
Every
was
troop has a troop leader and an assistant troop leader.
maybe in Girl Scouts, but we don't know that about this because there wasn't an assistant troop leader for Troop Beverly Hills until they deemed that Phyllis needed help.
I guess they just didn't have anyone available.
I guess. I'm not really sure how that works, but Velda takes over and twists her ankle almost immediately.
Which is pretty funny.
And her daughter and the rest of the Red Feathers just like have a mutiny and leave her there. Our heroes save her. And
Yeah, but they're kind of just doing exactly what they were taught to do by their jerk of a leader.
that's true. I think the real only obstacle that our heroines had to overcome was their bridge got cut out.
Yeah.
And there was a giant log, and they just had to eat. I think it's in a lot of movies where it's just like they have to really, I almost said man up, and that's not the appropriate word for this episode.
I don't know if that's the appropriate word for anything.
They really just had to kind of overcome and talk themselves through it, and just walking across a giant log that was a good 4 feet across.
It's one of those things, though, where the more you think about it, the more difficult it is.
Right, I agree. But they get through it. They find Velda. They take all their backpacks and they basically make something to carry Velda, and they end up winning because to win you have to have the entire team plus troop leader go across, and because the Red Feathers didn't have their leader, they technically lost, and Troop Beverly Hills is the next one across, and they brought her. So they end up winning, and they are now the best troop ever.
The best troop ever.
Yeah. I think the only real flaw I find with this movie is I like that there is growth. I like that she realizes that she can still be pretty and, be a fashionable woman and still lead and be part of this organization. But they really didn't have any business winning that race. Like, they didn't actually show any survival skills. I would have loved...
It's a race, though. You make it to the end. That's all that matters.
Right, but it was just, they lucked their way through. I would have liked to see them solve some sort of problem where they realized that, maybe she was reading the manual at some point on how to survive, and there's something they noticed. Or that would have been my only thing, was if she embraced that aspect of the Wilderness Girls a little bit,
right,
and picked up some nature skills, and maybe they were going to get disqualified, and through some technicality they got back in, and she really studied and made sure that the girls were prepared to be out in nature. Because realistically, none of those girls had any survival skills or had any business being out there.
Honestly, that's kind of how scouting goes for girls.
Right, but
sadly.
I mean, when you look at the rest of the troops in the movie,
yeah,
they really had no business winning.
Yeah.
They didn't deserve it. But it was fun, and I enjoyed the movie.
It was a great film. Is there any random trivia?
I do have a random trivia. So, Carla Gugino, who ends up being like the mom in Spy Kids, she's also in Sin City, big actress. She was in this. She played Chica. And she was 16 years old. She lied about how old she was, which I don't understand how that works, because clearly you'd have to do paperwork. But she lied and said she was 14 when she was actually 16.
Once you have the part, it's kind of like the people doing the paperwork are sort of separate from the director and the producers and the people who are making the creative decisions.
That's fair. But she was 16, the oldest of the kids, and significantly taller than everybody else. So they kind of had to cheat it. She was always in the back if there's a group shot. In the scene where they were having the sleepover in the hotel, she was sitting on the floor and all the other girls were sitting on pillows to kind of mask the height difference. Right. Because she was like 6 inches to a foot taller than like all the other girls.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so that's kind of the big fact that I had.
Jenny Lewis was in this too.
I don't know who that is.
That
was very important to Katrina, by the way.
Well, I don't know. She's a singer. She just came out with a new album. She's in Rilo Kiley. She never outgrew her weird little mouth.
I looked her up
I'm a terrible person.
On like IMDb and saw her in a bunch of stuff through like the early 2000s. She did a lot. And then she transitioned to music, and it's just like as herself, and I couldn't name any of her songs.
Aww.
Not that doesn't mean she's not talented in her field. I just don't know her.
This had a pretty big budget.
How much?
You want to read it?
$18 million? It only made $8 million, though? This was a financial loss.
Yeah, but it's so good. It's kind of like a cult classic.
I guess this makes sense that, we're seeing that not a ton of people watch this movie as kids.
Right.
I thought this was a huge movie. It was on TV all the time, and my parents always wanted to watch it. I thought this was a big deal.
I think for those of us who were actually in Girl Scouts, it was probably a bigger deal.
That's why I liked it.
It's a good movie. It's fun. Definitely enjoyable, and it's fast paced. It's got really great comedic timing. I don't think there was any point in this film where I was bored. Like, I can actually just sit and watch this movie.
And the chemistry between all the girls were great, and all the adult actors. Mm-hmm. It was legitimately a fun movie.
Yeah. It aged really well.
I agree.
I think it's just as enjoyable now as it was when I was a kid.
I don't think there was really anything that problematic other than you mentioned that line, which, they had a Latina actress do a line that was done by a Hispanic actor in the past, like you said. Other than that, I didn't really see anything else problematic with this movie, and that happens a lot when we watch things from the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah, there really isn't that much. Most of it is just kind of a little bit of sexism that is a sign of the times, but for the most part, it's not nearly as bad as most of the stuff that we watch. Oh, I forgot to mention that Velda wears a purple heart.
No.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wounded in battle.
Oh, man.
She's a widow.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's about it.
All right.
That's pretty much it. What are we doing next time?
So this month, April, is the 2-year anniversary of the show. We've been doing this for 2 years now. So we're going to do a movie that a lot of people have been asking us to cover. It's our most requested topic, and we wanted to save it for a major event. We're going to be covering one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's a fun movie, but it's a little overrated.
It is one of the best movies of all time. Easily in my top 10 favorite movies
It's a great
of all time.
movie, but
It's not overrated, and I will fight you over it.
you'll lose.
I will win with logic, compassion.
Oh, we're gonna debate over it. I thought you meant fight, and I was like, I can take you. I've been working out. You don't even have anything to say about that.
Where can our listeners find you?
I'm all over the internet at Katrina Ossity. Check out my YouTube channel.
All right, and also you guys can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have a super link on our Instagram. Instagram's probably the best place to look, and we've got a new way for you guys to contact us. We do have a MDXpods hotline now, and the phone number is 64 MDXpods 1.
Way to go.
If you want to know what that actual number is, it's 646-397-6371. We've been reading listener comments on air for probably a good 6 months or so.
Yeah.
If you guys want to leave us a voicemail and tell us what you like about Back to the Future, your favorite parts of Back to the Future, tell Katrina why she's wrong about that movie being overrated, leave us a voicemail and we will play your voicemail on air.
It's a good movie. It's just not the best movie ever made.
I didn't say it's the best movie ever made. I said it's in the top 10.
Eh.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening.
Bye.
Bye.